Beecher Stowe wrote in 1878 that Vashti's decision was a first stand for women's rights, and that we shall stand amazed that there was a woman found at the head of the Persian Empire that dared disobey the command even of a drunken monarch. About 20 years later, the Women's Bible Commentary put together by suffragist Elizabeth Cady Stanton called Vashti a sublime representative of self-centered womanhood who rises to the heights of self-consciousness and of self-respect. So what's the story of Queen Vashti, and how many knew that she began the book of Esther? Queen Vashti is a story we often leave out because it's not a particularly happy story, right? It's not a story that even comes off well for Queen Vashti because she ends up deposed. So what's happening in this story? In this story, the king has decided that he wants to celebrate his empire of Persia from India to Kush, so from India through the Middle East to Greece. And he decides to throw a party. For 6 months, he throws a party. For 6 months, the people and soldiers and government officials party to celebrate the empire of Persia. And at the end of that 6 months, he decides to throw a 7-day-long banquet. So 6 months, now 7 days. And at this banquet, which is in the royal palace with the beautiful curtains and all the stone and with the goblets of gold, they begin drinking, and it says they drink and drink and drink, and they don't have a control on the drinking by command of the king. And into the midst of that drunken celebration for 6 months and 7 days, the king says to the eunuchs, "Bring the queen, show her off for my people and governors." Sharifa Stevens explains that the king put Vashti between a rock and a hard place. As a queen, it was likely culturally inappropriate for her to be present at risque soirees. In fact, in some understandings we have of the culture, queens were not even allowed to be seen by anybody but the eunuchs and the king. And these eunuchs were to escort her into a room with hundreds of men engaged in a week-long bender. May have been a more terrifying proposition to Vashti than refusing the king of Media and Persia. That Vashti saying no at this point is something that just wouldn't be done. So I want to first stop on the words that it says that the king ordered her to show off her beauty to the people. So in the Hebrew, this word is a word that derives from the idea of to see. But in the context of seeing, it has a connotation of ostentatiousness, of display, of gloating over something. But because of its placement within the story and the setting around the words of to show off Vashti's beauty, it is given this voyeuristic quality that isn't more than just gloating. It's a quality of examining in detail and enjoying and looking at. In fact, some scholars say that when the king asked to show off the beauty, with only her crown, they believe that it could possibly mean that he wanted her to come with only her crown on. So Vashti is given that order. She's ordered by the king after this horrible party where all the men are drunk to come before them to show off her beauty. And it breaks all the rules. She's not to be seen by anybody but the eunuch and the king. She's not to be seen in the way he's asking her to be seen. So she says no. She says no to that order to come before everyone and show off. Because this text is making it sound like she's a possession. That she is something that the king owns and controls. She becomes a possession and is dehumanized. So when she hears that request, she says no. She refuses to put herself on display. She refuses to be just arm candy. And that action seals Vashti's doom. She doesn't want to make a display of herself to others. No, she doesn't want to degrade herself. No, she does not want to do what they asked of her. She did not want to be seen by all those drunken men. And the counselors and sages say this is not allowed. This is not what can be. Because if she's allowed to get away with this, if people can disobey the king, imagine what all the women in the kingdom will do. They will disobey all the king's orders, and they will disobey their husbands. I don't know how it jumped from king to husbands, but apparently in the counselors' minds, if you let women get away with one thing, they will leap and take over everything. And we can't have that. We can't have women who can think for themselves, who can make decisions about their bodily autonomy, who can decide to say no. And doesn't this sound familiar? I've been thinking about this a lot because, you know, my blue sky feed is messed up, right? It's all political. And so this morning, as I'm reading at 6 o'clock, right, which I shouldn't have been, don't do that, it's not advised. There's an article that just came out about this modeling agency, Elite, that was around in the 80s and 90s, and how they treated their models. And in one scene, it describes this girl who is 15 years old and in her swimsuit, having to walk down these stairs on a boat to be judged by these middle-aged men. And most of the models were from that age, 14 to, it said 24, but of all the records the reporter found, most of them were between 15 and 19. And what this reporter discovered in these stories of this modeling agency is abuse upon abuse of those 14 and 15-year-old girls. And that we let them get away with that. I mean, I remember in the 80s and 90s going, these models are too thin and too young, right? Like, they wanted us to look like someone who is 14 when we are full-grown women who can't look like we're 14. And this story just illustrates how little control sometimes women have. That some of them, they describe finding girls from all over the country, especially in poor rural conditions, who when offered this chance to have a life outside of poverty did whatever they had to do to survive. That story of women not having a choice about how they are viewed, of what they are seen in, of saying no, is a story that women have to live with over and over and over again. That it doesn't just happen a long time ago in a Bible far, far away. It's the story that we still deal with. It's the argument that's given for why women shouldn't be allowed an education, why they shouldn't make their own living, why they should not be in charge of their own lives, instead with a male relative in charge. It's the argument against why women should be in the workplace and why they shouldn't be in the military and why they shouldn't be in the pulpit. It's the argument that we've been seeing play out nationally, as if you've been on TikTok or Instagram, there are all these videos about what perfect motherhood and wifehood looks like. And it looks like you stay at home and it's this idyllic image of a man who provides this huge house. I don't know how they all get huge houses. This huge house that is beautifully furnished with these perfectly adorable blonde kids. I don't know why they are all blonde either. But these children. And we see that push coming from our parts of our society saying that that's what we need to go back to. We need to go back to this idealized image of perfect womanhood, where you are known for your beauty, because most of their videos are about how do you stay in shape and keep up and look beautiful in this environment. That this image of women as just to be shown off, as just to be controlled, is at the heart of what those advisors are saying, right? That we have to make a law that goes from India to Greece, that women are not in control, that men are the masters of their houses. No matter what culture they're in, right? They're stepping on the different traditions from India to Kush about how families are formed and created, and saying, this is the way you will be. And Queen Vashti into that steps and says no. And it is a no that we have heard again and again throughout history. Vashti's no leads to the story of Queen Esther, and Queen Esther's no to the destruction and genocide of her people. Vashti's no becomes a no for all women. As we look at a journey of people, Harriet Tubman said no to slavery and yes to freedom. Fannie Lou Hamer said no, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired, and yes to death threats for Mississippians to have the right to vote. Rosa Parks said, no, I will not get up. I'm tired of being treated like a second-hand citizen. Vashti's no leads to a history of women's no's. It's a critical no. It tells us that the world can be different, that it doesn't have to be the way it has always been, that we have autonomy and rights, that we have the ability to say no to what is wrong. I mean, think about the ways our society at the moment is arguing about what it means to be the right human being. Your hair isn't right. Don't go on TikTok or Facebook. Your body shape isn't right. Your gender identity isn't right. Your language isn't right. Your country of origin isn't right. Your immigration status isn't right. Your family makeup isn't right. Your education level isn't right. Your income isn't right. But Vashti reminds us of the importance of standing up and saying, I am enough. And even if this no means that I no longer have to be queen, think of the freedom that could be. If she is no longer queen, she can actually go out of the palace. She can actually go be her. Not the queen, but Vashti. She can now do as she wants within limits because it is a patriarchal society. But she can be her. And each one of us is created in the image of the Creator. We are created and told that we are good by God. And the story of Vashti is meant to remind us that even when the powers and principalities say that you are not enough, that you still have a no within you. You still have the ability to own who you are, to accept that Spirit's nudge and push, to be that good creation. Because God ordained us to be unique, to be different, and to be special in our own ways. And we can celebrate that difference. Celebrate that spark of the divine that each of us has. That beauty that we've each been granted. That intelligence and wonder that we've been given. And a story reminds us that when we're asked to do something that is harmful, that will mean that our humanity is not seen, that we have the right to say no. Amen.